You just look straight, simple math of a bottle of this particular resin. It's like $600 for a kilo of the resin. By volume, you'd get 150 aligners out of it, but with residual waste, you're probably looking at about 130, 125, 130. So just apples to apples, you could say $5 to actually print the direct print aligner or retainer, as opposed to a traditional model that might be somewhere around $2 and a piece of Zendura or tagless plastic that could be $3 to $4. So it's similar in that, traditional being a little more just on material cost. The huge benefit, Glenn, that we see is when you think traditional aligners, you don't have to thermoform. If you're using a light cure composite to block out, to rough cut, to trim cut, and all the labor around it, that's the big difference for doctors to do.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Glenn Krieger, and today we have not just one, but two guests who are going to rock your world. And if you've ever wanted to learn anything, I'm just going to go straight to the chase. If you ever want to learn about anything related to an efficient, pretty affordable way to direct print aligners. You heard me say that. Direct print aligners in your office, then you better stay tuned for what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot more, but first let me make some introductions. First, we got Mark Bacino, Vice President of Sales, Voxel Dental. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Dr. Krieger. Pleasure to be on with you today.
My pleasure. You know him and you love him because he's been in the ortho industry since he was 4. Nathan Hudson, known as Nate Hudson, Sales Director of Renew Digital. Welcome, Nate.
Thanks, Dr. Krieger. Such an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, it's truly a pleasure. And please, both guys, call me Glenn. Dr. Krieger was my dad. Is my dad. Not was. Sorry, Dad. So there's so much for us to talk about here because there's become a recent sort of synergy or partnership of Voxel and Renew because of some private equity that sort of brought you guys together. But let's start here first, because for me, I'm much more important than people before product. So let's start talking first about, I'll start with you, Nate. Give us that 60-second elevator pitch a little bit of how did you end up doing what you're doing? And then we'll get into the companies a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Just a quick jog through memory lane here. I got brought on by Henry Schein Dental, was fortunate enough to be the number one guy in that company, and Renew Digital called and said, hey, would you consider an opportunity? I was like, I don't know, used x-rays. Ooh. And so they're like, let us fly you in. And that's when everything changed, because when I got there, it was just, the place looked like Jay Leno's garage, all super high-end equipment, epoxy floors, color-coded, label dated. And I was like, whoa, what are you guys doing here? I've been referring you business for like 7 years. What am I doing? And to be able to offer high-end product for 30 to 50% off what market price is, that just went along with my philosophy of tools before toys, lower your overhead, increase your efficiency, and broaden procedural codes you can build for to take that money home, right? So that's how I got started. It was great. Still love it. And we're bridging the gap between us and Voxel. Really grateful.
Right on. And Mark, same for you. If you want to give everybody just some idea of who you are and how you ended up where you are, and again, then we'll get into Voxel and Renew separately.
Thanks, Glenn. Started off in the late 90s in the dental industry with Henry Schein, and spent the majority of my career in the ortho space. A lot of time with Ormco. Was with a startup called Orthoclear back in the day. Spent some time with Ortho5, which was a great experience from the business consultative side, business orthodontics. James Bonham, the founder of Voxel Dental, I actually hired him into the business many moons ago at Ormco. And we kind of had always chatted about, partnering up again, getting back together. And the timing was never right on both sides until about 3.5 years ago, where James and I were talking one night over a cold beverage and decided to join Voxel. And all the things that we can teach and train, the autonomy we have to bring in different product verticals and autonomy to make decisions and do things for our doctors. And it's been great being able to help offices bring as much in-house for their digital lab visions that they have. So like I said, for the last few years, been running with that and loving every minute of it.
Right on. So since you're the last one talking, Mark, tell us a little bit about what Voxel does.
Yeah, so Voxel Dental, at our base, we are a distributor, but James and a couple others used to own orthodontic labs. And they actually were running the 150 plus person digital team. James was part owner at Specialty Appliances, the second largest, ortho lab in the country. And about 8 years ago, when 3D printers started coming to the desktop, a lot of the customers were asking, how do I do this? How do I bring 3D printing in-house? And so the genesis of Voxel was created. So started Voxel Dental, just James, added another person, Michael Sturdeman, who's still on our team today. And it wasn't just about finding a printer and selling a printer and letting the manufacturer train them or do these things. It was literally because of the experience in designing, building, running orthodontic labs that we actually sell, train, support everything that there is in terms of not just that printer, but also other digital components or third-party softwares that you might want to be included in your vision for that workflow and how they all work together. What's the best rate to go? 3D printers turned into a couple lines of X-ray brands, and now we sell 7 different lines of X-ray units today, 2D and 3D. That also sent its tentacles out to scanners. We sell about 4 different lines of scanners. Some robotics, some cool new technology that's out on the market in the ortho space. And orthodontics is where we grew up. That's the discipline that we've been helping. We've sold thousands of printers to orthodontic offices. And the other discipline of dentistry that we focus heavily on is the surgical aspect, with everything going on with full arch provisional printing, all on X cases, 4, 6 implants. The whole aspect of the digital workflow, utilizing scanning, CBCT, design technologies, a technology that's been around for years in industrial called photogrammetry, but it's also a record that can be had to show the GPS coordinates of those 4, 6, or 8 implants in the mouth, and printing those full arch prostheses that are going to passively screw retain into where that patient's leaving from surgery with a set of teeth. So that's been a lot of fun. So those are the 2 main segments that we have operated in, and been growing and doing things and scaling for the last few years, and enjoying the heck out of it.
Right on. Now, Nate, you mentioned a little bit about Renew before, and anybody who's in ortho for more than a few years knows about Renew Digital. You guys are as honest as the day is long, personal experience, not just giving you some line. You know that. Renew saved me tens of thousands of dollars when I first bought a practice a decade ago that had an old first generation pan-ceph, digital pan-ceph, and the sensor plate you had to pull out and change, right? It was like you put a sensor in. It was a really interesting system back in the day. But I wasn't ready to go CBCT yet. And so you guys got me a new sensor for like $1,000 or $2,000 versus having to replace a whole machine for 20 or 30 grand. So, but essentially you help people get, let's say gently used, pan-ceph, CBCT, stuff like that, right?
It's pretty cool because, I got to, similar to you, you had working experience with us prior. And I referred business to Renew Digital for about 7 years. And the thing that I would constantly hear from the people that I referred them to, because a lot of folks want to upgrade, just as you mentioned, wanted to upgrade to CBCT, but weren't ready. And those doctors are oftentimes like, hey, Nate, what do I do with my perfectly good, low use fill in the blank? And it's like, oh, yeah, I can get you a trade in for that. And at the time, they were like, man, you guys do everything. And I'm like, well, we work with somebody, but I kind of like keeping that credit for myself, if you will. And so Renew Digital, the thing I hated about working with Renew Digital is, 3 out of 4 options that I gave them, they'd be like, hey, Nate, thank you so much, but that's just not a good fit for us. And one day after being frustrated, I was like, well, hold on. This is the Porsche 911 of cone beam. You guys don't want it. Help me help you. Like, I'm lost. And they're like, yeah, great analogy. You're right. That is the Porsche. This Porsche has 76,000 miles. We don't buy Porsches with over 30,000 miles. And then I had an aha moment because of that. And then the feedback from doctors when the Renew Digital team would come in and remove their system, folks would say things like, who was that tech? You guys got to get him on your team. He was amazing. Left my practice cleaner than what he found it. Somewhat embarrassing, but such a great experience. So, and with that, we're we're pretty full service there. Install, and training, warranty, software, computer. So you have a turnkey solution, which is awesome.
Right on. And so the two of you are joining. We don't need to get into the whole story about private equity and what happened there. But now you guys get to really offer service, support, digital technology. If somebody's looking for any form of digital technology to put in their office, including an iTero, they just need to call you guys and let them work it out behind the scenes. Who does what, right? It's easy enough.
Right.
So, but let's jump into what's really exciting, because I know this is going to take a fair amount of time, and I'm going to have a lot of questions for you, because when you guys were presenting, well, you didn't present so much as just really be a sponsor of the Orthopreneurs R&D group. When we did our recent meeting in Vegas with Mike Bacino, it was really great to have you all there to really talk about what it is you're doing. And I think it's fair to roll this out to the rest of the ortho world, because it kind of blew our minds. And you're talking about a very progressive group of orthodontists who were in that room, and even they were kind of shocked in a positive way about what you're doing. So who wants to talk a little bit about direct print aligners?
I could talk about it, Glenn. Absolutely.
Go get it, Mark.
What you got? The thing that we've always hung our hat on at Voxel is finding new and innovative technologies to try to help train and teach and support, educate the market. We've always kind of looked for things that maybe the first 10 or 20% might like to jump on and get involved. We were actually one of the first, if not the first, 3D printer distributor out there, and have hung our hat on our experiences with that. So for years, of course, doctors always ask us, we train them to print models to make the thermoform, Essex or in-house traditional aligners. We've always heard the question, when can I print these directly? And that's been going on for years. Well, the technology is one thing with the printer. The resins have been another thing that have to be created in order to help and make some tooth movement, efficient that you're looking to accomplish. The other thing, because I'll talk a little bit more about who we decided to partner up with in this space as we were looking at what does Voxel feel is the best system out there. It's a company called Lux Creo. And we actually started talking to them back in 2019 out of Asia, where they manufacture everything. They have offices in Chicago and out in San Francisco area. And we've been visiting them for the longest time. We've had the retainers and the aligners in our mouths. The thing that has held us up until last year was the practicality of the clicks, the workflow. Can this actually be accomplished in the office? And some of the things that have happened more recently from a click standpoint have made the software that's been created to try and accomplish these things in the workflow much more doable, very doable for the orthodontic office. And that's one reason why we finally, at middle last year, actually before that, around the AAO, decided to actually bring Lux Creo on, because we felt that digital workflow piece was at a point that we could train and teach staff and do things efficiently to get that final aligner to deliver.
So do you mind talking a little bit about it, about what Lux Creo really is and how it works?
Yeah, so Lux Creo, printer, digital light projection, light engine, very solid printer, which actually does a number of different applications in the dental space. But essentially, anytime that you're thinking about printing, of course, what am I looking to print? With aligners, of course, we need something that is going to move the teeth, right? So if we're looking at the doctor designing in a ULab or some other tooth movement engine, arch form, what have you, ULab's definitely a popular one out there that's doing some integration aspects with the Lux Creo. But that's where it first comes about, Glenn, where you do your tooth design, and then an easy way to import those STL files and the trimline files that you're going to bring into the Lux Creo design software. And when you think about a system, because we have looked at other companies that just make a clear aligner resin that can be printed on other printers, they may be post-processed in a different way, not the traditional isopropyl alcohol bath and cure. But we wanted to keep it simple. So you're going to bring the stage files into the Lux design and slice them in the Lux Flow software. And they've created some AI functions that make it very easy, one-click workflows, we call them, that are going to look at those tooth movement, those stage files, create the actual aligner shell that is going to be generated, supported on the build plate in the software. Some other aspects that you can do, which is really cool when it comes to direct print aligners, that you can thicken certain areas of the aligner to try to create some different type of force movements. Inevitably, a digitally fit aligner is going to hug that tooth better. So we already see some doctors who have maybe designed in ULab and placed an attachment for a particular type movement that they find that they don't have to place that same attachment in that similar case with a direct print aligner. And in a matter of about 2 hours, once you've designed and set up your print job, you're going to be able to print, run through all the post-processing, and have up to 12 aligners printed at one time, whether that's 5 upper, 5 lower, 12 upper, whatever you're looking to do in your workflow or deliver to that patient. You're ready to rock in delivering those aligners, as well as retainers. We could talk a little bit about that in a minute. My opinion on direct print retainer versus direct print aligner with these materials versus thermoforming sheets.
Hey everybody, tickets for Summit 2025 are on sale now. Take a listen to what some of the attendees from Summit 2024 had to say.
This is one of the most unique, most impactful meetings that you can go to as an orthodontist.
It has everything compared to other meetings. Entertainment, the content in the meeting, the speakers, the food.
I learned a lot. It helps the practice, so it really kind of checks all the boxes.
You hope to get something out of it that is going to pay dividends for years to come.
Definitely return on your investment.
We take back a lot to our office.
You get information that you probably don't get easily at any other meeting.
Okay, so long story short, people use a certain number of software platforms to set the teeth up, move them, put them where they want, and I guess the software will then stage them, and then they just send it directly to the printer, and the printer is going to print, without printing a 3D model, it's just going to print the actual aligners out of resin.
100%.
And I hate pinning you down on this one, but you mind giving an approximate cost? If I want to get the Lux Creo system soup to nuts, I don't want any sort of, oh, well, you didn't buy this piece, which allows you to actually, makes them fit. If I wanted to go all in with it, what am I basically spending if I want to go that route?
You're looking at about a $21,000 investment for the entire system, which includes some of the resins to get started with, the subscription deluxe design software is included, and all the pieces of hardware necessary to cure and wash this Lux Creo material. It is their proprietary material called DCA, direct clear aligner resin, which is the same resin you would use whether you're choosing to print a set of aligners or a retainer, if that's the case as well. I would say, been talking a lot with Dr. Bill Lehman, who's been a ULab user for a while, done a lot of traditional in-house aligners as well as using Lux Creo for about a year and a half. He keeps pushing the envelope on the type of case he feels comfortable in doing in-house. I could talk a little bit about what I see as the target potential cases that you might consider with this. But he's probably saving all in when you talk about the materials, you talk about your labor, you talk about the software inclusion, you talk about any residual waste, just that naturally comes from printing, and his labor cost. He's probably close to about $4 less with a direct print aligner than a traditional aligner.
Okay, depending upon what company he gets it from, obviously. And so my question is, you just beat me to the punch. Not including your upfront costs, do we know what the cost per aligner is when printed?
With all of those variables that I was talking about, if you just look straight, simple math of a bottle of this particular resin, it's like $600 for a kilo of the resin. By volume, you'd get 150 aligners out of it, but with residual waste, you're probably looking at about 130, 125, 130. So just apples to apples, you could say $5 to actually print the direct print aligner or retainer, as opposed to a traditional model that might be somewhere around $2 and a piece of Zendura or tagless plastic that could be 3 to 4. So it's similar in that, traditional being a little more just on material cost. The huge benefit, Glenn, that we see is when you think traditional aligners, you know, you don't have to thermoform.
Right.
If you're using a light cure composite to block out, to rough cut, to trim cut, and all the labor around it, that's the big difference for doctors to do.
I basically print a whole bunch of it on a build plate, wash, cure, break it off, and done.
You're finished. There's a really ingenious way that Lux Creo designed in their software, the support structures, because when you're printing a thermoforming plastic resin, it's a lot different than a thermoforming sheet. And it's very much different than the viscosity and the delicate nature of printing, say, a 3D model versus this aligner material. And so it doesn't warp, doesn't bend, different things when you're printing it. Lux Creo has come out with a really ingenious way that the AI function develops a support structure to make it print as accurate as the design software planned it for, as well as be able to take those supports off. And then you would take a quick second to buff with a little polishing wheel on the edges before you're going to be able to deliver those to the patient.
Nice. So do we have any data on how many aligners are currently in service, have been put out there? Do we have any idea?
I don't have that, and I definitely wouldn't have that in total in the industry when you think of people
using
use
Lux Creo.
Yeah, I do not have those numbers. We've probably sold about 30 to 40 systems into the industry since we started, but I don't have a total number of aligners on that.
It's okay. If someone was interested in this technology and wanted to learn more, I assume if they reached out to you, you'd be able to put them in touch with a doctor who's currently using it so they could ask questions, learn more, and what have you. You wouldn't expect somebody to just say, okay, cool, let's get started, right? Like, this is technology they're going to want to learn about. And obviously, how many aligners can be printed over what period of time and at what resolution?
You're going to be able to print 12 at one time. You're printing vertically with this material on their support structures.
Okay.
About 50 micron resolution, the thickness at about 100, but the speed is pretty good. I mean, the actual print time of those 12 aligners printed vertically is going to be 1 hour and 10 minutes.
Wow, that's great.
Then you'd wash for 8. There is this little oven that you put them in because you need them to totally be dehydrated or clear of any isopropyl alcohol residue before curing for about 20 minutes. And then end-to-end job from the print to the cure is right at 2 hours. And then you're looking to be able to go and take them off the support structure, buff the edges, and deliver.
I mean, realistically, it allows someone, if they wanted to, same-day delivery.
That's the beauty of this, Glenn, is we're really there, especially when you're considering maybe it's just 3 or 4 aligners. I mean, the overall goal where some of these platforms are at with their AI functions, you know how much time you might spend in front of something doing a limited treatment design versus something that's a little bit more complex that somebody might get you 90, 95% there. But I could see the future where there's some really easy AI functions to these design softwares, and then the AI function of building the actual print job on the aligner, and then the print time. You can knock out a few aligners and deliver those to have your patient actually get in their aligners that day.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Let's hop on over to Renew for just a little bit, Nate, if you don't mind.
Sure.
For everybody out there, we don't rehearse these before we go on. We just talk a little bit. And so I may ask some questions here and there where he may not have an answer or he may not be able to answer. So, but, let me reach out to you on this one, because Renew, I always associate Renew with understanding technology for, like you said originally, radiographs, right? Used X-ray stuff. Right now, what ratio would you say you're selling to people who are buying stuff of CBCT versus, say, PanSef? Is CBCT more, let me make it easier for you, is CBCT more popular nowadays when buying than PanSef, or is PanSef still the more popular option?
It's more, the CBCT is more popular because you can buy a certified pre-owned PanSef CBCT for less than what you can a 2D PanSef. And there's always more information, obviously, with the CBCT, but also ability to win more in terms of referrals. Right. Oddly enough, so many orthodontists tell me that they do take images for so many people around them, and we're a referral business just like you are. So super helpful.
Did you say that you could get a CBCT less expensively than a PANCEF?
Yeah, for like if you were comparing a new PANCEF to a certified pre-owned PANCEF CBCT, yeah, the cost effectiveness of those are less than most new 2D PANCEFs.
Now, when you said PANCEF CBCT,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure, are we talking about a dedicated CBCT unit that or one that's a PAN and CEF and happens to have some sort of workaround CBCT technology? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, it's the real deal. It's all about field of view. So the larger that 3D sensor is inside of the machine, the more it costs to manufacture, thus increasing your investment level. But yeah, dedicated CBCT, you can do your traditional PAN, your traditional CEF, and then maybe you just wanted to see impactions, right? Or impacted canines or eruption.
I'll tell you, I've been CBCT now, I don't know, 6 years. I mean, I can't give you the exact 7 years, maybe more. I don't remember. I don't want to mention names on your podcast because I'm not going to bring another person into your home.
Sure.
But the rep from the company from whom I bought had said to me, I said, well, what about PANs and CEFs? And he looked at me and said, why would you ever buy an LED television and then want to go back to a tube TV? Like, and he said, you're never, ever going to take a PAN or a CEF individually. You'll make one from your CBCT because your CBCT is going to be such better technology. And you want to know, he was 100% right. I have not taken a PAN or a CEF since I wouldn't have wanted one because for everything I use a PAN for, a CBCT is better. If I want to see impacted teeth, CBCT is better. If I want to do a PAN, if I want to do a CBCT reposition, it's better as a view to reposition brackets than it is off a PAN. And of course, all the airway related stuff that, again, I don't push it, but it's nice when someone says I've got a problem and you know where to refer them to, right? Is it the surgeon, is it the ENT? Who am I sending this patient to? So, because we're gatekeepers, and I know there's people out there who don't love that opinion, but if you're in healthcare and you're seeing patients, and by the way, I'm just going to throw this in there just so people can hear. Shiva Tagyani, who is one of the head readers at Beam Readers, maxillofacial radiologist, board cert, I mean, everything. She has an Orthopreneurs University course that we have. If anybody goes to orthopreneurs.com and goes to Orthopreneurs University, it is a must-watch CBCT course because she covers everything A to Z CBCT that you should know when you look at CBCTs and all that other stuff. But she sort of debunked that old myth that, if you have a CBCT, you're responsible for, knowing every single thing that's on that CBCT. That's not the case. Your job is not to diagnose any part of the head or neck that you don't have expertise in. And you're not responsible for that. And I know that people use that as a bogus argument why they don't go CBCT. Right. But I'm just throwing it out there that it's not true. You can get all the benefits without having to be worried about getting sued. And I would ask anybody, how many times in your career have you been sued because of a CBCT or radiographic negligence? It just doesn't happen that often. I personally don't know one person who's been sued in their entire life because of, you missed this on a CBCT. I'm sure it exists, or you missed this on a PAN. But anyway, I just wanted to touch that real quick because when you talk about CBCT.
Glenn, I this has been years ago, but it was a comment that Dr. John Graham had mentioned. I was listening.
Not John Graham, that son of a.
Been listening to him speak. And I think if there was any cases at that time, and literally we're talking about over a decade ago. So, but his comment was anything that was in the making or in any kind of litigation was because the technology was available, but not being used.
Right, exactly.
And so I don't know where that stands today, but yeah.
Had you used it, you would have found this.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? And so I have to ask you, Nate, maybe you can politely decline. What is the most popular CBCT that people are getting used today? That you can answer because you're not telling which one's your favorite.
Yeah.
What's the most popular CBCT that people are buying these days from Renew? And why do you think it is that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard just because everybody's got a little different philosophy to exactly what you just said. I hear that comment probably 8 to 10 times a week of, I don't want to be responsible for that. Like, what if
why would a healthcare provider ever want more information on their patient? I can understand if we put our heads in the sand and don't see it, that person will just have cancer undiagnosed, but at least at least it won't be on our watch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I guys, on my podcast, I get to say what I want. I have no patience whatsoever for that. If I had a beep button, I'd hit it now for that, crappy. Any of my peers out there who tells somebody, I don't want CBCT because I'm afraid of being taken to court or law, message me directly when I say it's a bull crap, which I'll keep it clean, kind of response. It's just like, what would you do if you went to a physician who was going to do your physical and said, I have a test available that I can see more, but there's a lot there and I could miss some other things. And so I'm not going to do it on you because I don't want to be sued. You change doctors immediately. They'd be the worst doctor on the planet. So again, I get to say the things you guys don't get to say, because if they're pissed off, message me directly and I'll give you a piece of my mind on this one. The same when people say we shouldn't be looking at airway at all. Our ENT should. Sorry, folks. Here's a newsflash. Your ENTs and your pediatricians are not looking at airway, and we are the gatekeepers who get them there. How do I know that? Because when I talked to the head of pediatrics from Medical City, Dallas, and then she invited me to come speak on it with my ENT at their grand rounds, because most of their physicians had never even heard of the studies we were citing in our lit review. So again, more information is never bad. Okay, folks? Sorry about that. Now back to our regularly scheduled program, Nate.
Sidebar.
Yeah.
No, and you guys both mentioned someone you left the name off of happens to be one of my very close personal friends and mentors who helped you with your CBCT. Dr.
Ty Ramsey?
Indeed it is.
I got to say the name. I'm sorry, guys. It's Ty Ramsey. Ty Ramsey, I just put it out there. When he was in the CBCT world, he's anybody who doesn't know Ty, great guy, give you the shirt off his back. So gregarious, you think he's making up everything. You think he's totally full of crap. But truth of the matter is, that guy got me into CBCT and held my hand from the very beginning all the way through until I had real proficiency in it. And he's still there today. If I've got a question, even though he's not in the industry, if I send him a question on CBCT, he answers it like that.
Indeed.
And so sorry, there again.
And
we got to spend some time. We got to spend some time with Ty this past weekend. He came to visit us over in Florida at
nice.
the
Did he
midwinter.
play poker?
We didn't get that far. I'm not sitting down with him to play poker. Yeah, not doing that.
Do not play poker with Ty Ramsey. The guy is a professional poker player, legit professional poker player.
Yeah. So, I mean, and John Graham, Ty, I had 5 orthodontists out of Dallas going with me to Vegas, and they were talking about all the benefits of CBCT, and they're like, man, could anybody benefit from a scan? And I got a scan at the ripe age of 33, and they found out like, oh, you're breathing through 2 coffee stir sticks. So John pulled me, Dr. Graham, my apologies.
Just call him John. Call him Johnny.
He's so amazing.
He likes to be called Johnny.
I love him. And he's like, hey, man, let me pull you aside. And that's when we started a relationship. And he's like, look, you're the perfect candidate to never wake up again. And so as soon as I got back to Dallas, got a scan, and they're like, yeah, you have severe sleep apnea. And my migraines went away. So at any rate, I digress. But best CBCT, everybody's got a little bit different philosophy. Some folks are just not going to change from that traditional 2D pan and 2D Ceph. So, man, it's really hard. The great news is that's why we only carry the premium. If it's not on our website, you may want to second guess, like, is this the right one? I'm sure every salesperson says that, but
are you at liberty to maybe mention 4 or 5 names of CBCT units that you trust?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, iCat is likely the number one most requested by I'll call it progressive orthodontists, because it can do everything with one 5-second scan. Crazy. Which
I have, and I have to be honest, I haven't tried the others.
Sure.
But I've never looked back. Our iCat has been a workhorse. It never breaks. It always works. It's there, and it's amazing. And we have an iCat Flex. I don't know when those came out.
2013.
13? The Flex? Yep. So we probably got ours probably 16, 17 would be my guess, somewhere around there. Okay. And I've not looked back. To me, it's been everything everybody promised us. So that's iCat. Who else you're going to say?
Yeah, so we've got, a couple others like Plan Mecca, Sorona, Vatek, some folks like the CareStream unit. So with that being said, they all have their place. And, a big shift that we've seen is how many orthos are bringing in peds and vice versa. So they want a machine that will facilitate taking extraoral bite wings for diagnosis of caries extraorally. So yeah, with that being said, that's where a lot of those other brands are going to come in there. Dexis is a very popular one. So yeah, it's great.
I also too, Glenn, I think between Voxel on the new side and, Nate and his team, at Renew, a lot of our conversations are consultative where we can find one that works best for that doctor's solution they're looking for, maybe give a good, better, best option. I hear our imaging teams all the time. I mean, you're talking about space constraints, practice management software, imaging software, what you're currently using, what you could be using, left facing, step right, all these different things that may make best sense, or get in front of it if someone's doing a remodel or buying a new practice. All those different things that we can kind of get involved with to help hold hands and make sure that that solution is best for their office.
Yeah, you just beat me to the punch. I was going to say, if someone's a new orthodontist starting up with a practice, for sure, you should be calling you guys. By the way, do they call Renew or Voxel?
Yes.
Okay. You call Mark, you call Nate, and they'll connect you, right? It's kind of like the pedo will send you the ortho will send you the pedo, right? But if obviously if someone's refurbishing their office and wants to get new technology, not just CBCT, but technology, period. Hey, let's take a look and see what you're doing. What are your goals? What are you looking to do in your practice? How many years you got left to practice? Are you thinking about bringing on somebody else? What's your aligner bill? All that stuff that goes along with that. And then say, okay, here's some suggestions we have. Here's how it'll save you money. Here's how it'll save your workflow. Here's how it'll save you stress, et cetera, et cetera. Do you get a lot of business from folks who say, hey, my 3D printer just crapped out and I'm in trouble. I need a new printer ASAP. Get me one now. I'll bet you get that phone call every now and then, right?
We get that a lot, Glenn. And technology has changed since the last thing that they had seen. There's a decision: should I jump up to something like the direct print aligner printer that may make sense for me or not? That printer also prints regular traditional models. For instances that you need to knock out a retainer, quickly. People are printing splints and night guards, adding that to the production in their practice. For $35, you get an AI design, and for $5 of resin, you can, print out of the printer a perfectly fitting splint or night guard that, on the GP side of things, those doctors are charging $400, $500, $600, $700 for, $35 investment within that. And, just some different avenues that you have versus the analog way that you might have done a night guard in the past. So, really cool stuff. And that we look to put them in there. Somebody's not ready for that. We have 6 different printers that we do sell. So it may make sense for a lower cost entry to get you back up and running real quick, or, where you need to be. So good, better, best option for what they're looking to do. Scanners is another thing. I mean, we are these days probably getting more scanner calls than we are printer calls because of a lot of different solutions out there in the marketplace and people trying different avenues, whether it's just a second scanner or somebody might have switched aligner companies and looking for something else out there than what's currently in their office. So all those things kind of incorporate where we can help you decide, and more importantly, teach you about the pros and cons of those different options so that you're well informed to make the best decision for moving forward.
I think you guys have covered almost every single thing you can cover about Voxel and Renew. Is there anything else I've forgotten to ask you? Is there anything else you want to add?
I did want to mention, Glenn, because we've been talking so much about sleep on the cone beam side, screening, snore, airway, all of that. One other thing that I will add to the Lux Creo is now you can print same-day EMA sleep appliances on it.
Wow.
FDA approval to be able to, company that we have gotten to know recently that has been involved in that lab game on the EMA sleep side forever.
Wow.
And they now have some really easy design applications where you're 510K approved, of course, under their lab, but
Right.
you're able to digitally design these. So whether it's I took a airway shot with my CBCT, and as an orthodontist, I want to offer a cash pay option just from a snore guard, if you will. I'm not the clinician here. Or do you have a full-blown network of sleep doctors that are sending you people who have actually been diagnosed with actual sleep apnea, that you can accomplish it that way? So it's this whole other added element of sleep potential with this technology now, with hopefully not in the so distant future, because it's printed with the same aligner material, that you will now be able to do that same day sleep appliance with tooth movement. So that's intriguing to some orthodontists as
That
well.
is intriguing. There's a lot there. Nate, was there anything that you wanted to add to this?
I would just say, just call and have a conversation, because we're going to point you in the direction that's advantageous to your procedure mix and preferences, not ours. We get to sell the best solutions. So we have no incentive to sell you something that's over the top or not quite what you're looking for. And quite frankly, sometimes people feel a little bit more comfortable going certified pre-owned. Some people feel a little more comfortable going new. So with that, we'll just point you in the right direction so everybody wins. And it's not about us, it's about you. And we'll help you however we can.
Right on. So if anybody wants to get a hold of each of you, do you mind giving your individual contact information?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I would just tell you to reach out to my office line, because it rings my cell as well. And that's 404-418-8753. Or you can reach me at nathan@renewdigital.com. And if you would let me know where you're from, I can put you in the hands of the right representative to take the best care of you.
Right on. Cool. And for you, Mark?
Yeah, Mark Bacino. My cell number is 469-525-0791. You can email me at Mark, that's MARK, at voxeldental.com. I can put you in touch with the right person at Voxel, whether it's imaging or printing or scanning, to have some conversations with you. Or if you just want to in general reach out, you can reach out from our website, info@voxeldental.com, and we'll make sure that the right person is getting back in contact with you.
And I have to ask, just because I have to ask, any specials or anything going on right now that people should be aware of?
Yeah, we have a few running off the midwinter. One that was popular at the midwinter on that Lux Creo system, because it's an investment, and I think the ROI is tremendous with the potential for limited treatment cases, or even talking to a lot of doctors to be able to treatment plan for hybrid cases, to maybe close more exams and get that adult patient out of braces in 6, 7, 8, 9 months and finish with aligners. I think there's a lot of ROI there, but 0% for 12 months on the Lux Creo system that we're currently offering. That you can reach out to us, and that might help the cash flow scenario for you to get that technology into the practice.
Very cool.
Something we've never done before, Glenn, is like a 0% for 3 years offering. And in December, we get a gigantic influx of gear. So we're so grateful for everybody's patronage. I don't want to sound ungrateful, but thank you so much. And on our website, you'll see it. There's a little flash screen going across that says flash sale. If you click on that, you'll have access to all the systems that have that promotional financing, which is kind of unreal. So, happy to help.
0% for 3 years is crazy.
Yeah, it's great.
Especially with today's interest rate environment.
Oh, my. Yeah, indeed.
Can you get me a car?
Yeah.
Give me a car at 0%, 3 years. Good luck with that one.
Exactly.
Great guys, great companies, great service, great products. I have no financial interest whatsoever in terms of anything they sell you or service. And so they certainly are running in the Orthopreneurs ecosystem. So I do have that, but you'll see them at meetings all the time. If you're an RD, of course, you know who they are. If you're an Orthopreneurs, you'll see them at Summit. And just want to say thank you guys for being a part of this today. And thanks for all the great information you're sharing with everybody.
Thanks so much, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks for
our honor to be on. Appreciate you, man.